PvP interactions in Escape from Tarkov can be very intimidating. Especially when there are so many gameplay mechanics specific to Tarkov you can't really learn anywhere else. In this video, I will be showing you what every level 75 Chad knows after thousands of hours of game time to Escape from Tarkov, so you can walk out with more raids and more loot. Grab yourself a refreshing beverage and let's jump right in. The first thing I want to talk about is peeking. Specifically, let's talk about the difference between right hand and left hand peeks. The same friend, thank you very much by the way, you know who you are, is going to demonstrate what a right hand peek looks like versus a left hand peek and why it is so important that you always take the right hand peek when you can. So why don't you go ahead and peek on the right hand side for me. Wow, sounds kind of creepy. Just okay, we're testing purposes, okay chat? Testing purposes. So as you can see, like, especially if I was just walking down the hallway, he almost blends into the green. Look how little you can actually see him. And right now, I made sure that he has an angle on my head. So, okay, can you switch over to the left-hand side now? And now watch what happens when he switches to the left-hand side. Both times, he was instructed just so he can see the tip of my face and get his gun around the corner. Look at that difference. It's like you can almost see... You can probably fit a few of his last portrait when he was right-hand peeking within that space that you can now see when he's on his left-hand side. That's why, for two reasons, it's so important to get that right-hand peek. For visibility and just for hit chance. I mean, if you don't notice the right-hand peeker, you're just dead. But clearly, when he's peeking on the left, he stands out way more, and you're also much more likely to hit him. Next, I have a comment asking about how some individuals fast lean and how to use that in combat. Well, there are three main factors when it comes to ADS speed. Let's get into it. Something a lot of people don't know is that you actually ADS faster out of a sprint than you do regularly. I know it kind of sounds weird, but you're just gonna have to trust me on this one. Well, actually, I'm about to show you. So let's go ahead and just ADS here. You can see this, right? Not terrible. But look what happens when I ADS out of a sprint. It's like instant. Look at that. It's night and day how much faster you ADS out of a sprint. I'm not sure why that is or if it's going to be changed, but that is definitely something to keep in mind during combat. Another thing you have to keep in mind is the ergonomics of your weapon. So you can see this is the weapon I have equipped right now. Don't mind it. I'm probably doing something weird with it, okay? Relax. Okay, I can see the comments coming in now. Turn me for this gun, this scope, whatever. It's fine, okay? Relax. We have 55 ergonomics on it, okay? And the way ergonomics works is essentially the more ergonomics you have, the faster your ADS speeds are. Now, I don't know exactly the difference between how much ergonomics you get versus you lose out on when you have low ergonomics, but weapons with low ergonomics will have a much longer time ADSing than weapons with higher ergonomics. However, when it comes to peeking, it really shouldn't matter what your ergonomic stat is, and that's because this next tip is something you should be doing if you're not already doing, and sometimes it's not really obvious when you're watching other streamers. So let me get my gun out here. And that is simply ADSing before you peek, okay? You should never be doing this, okay? Say your enemy's around the corner. You should never be going, oh, and then ADSing. And that's because you waste a lot of time, basically the amount of time it takes to raise your scope up. And especially if you have a low ergonomic gun, you're not going to want to wait that time. The simple fix to this is if you know where your enemy is, and we'll get into information soon, but if you know where your target's at, all you should do is ADS before you peek, and then boom, you know? That way you can get the shot off instantly. You don't have to worry about how long it takes to bring your gun up because your gun should simply already be up before you peek the corner. You should never go like that and then peek. When in a gunfight would you ever peek knowing that there's someone who knows your presence, you're aware of their presence? When would you just peek without your weapon at the ready in a real life situation? You definitely wouldn't. So If peeking is a problem for you, a good way to practice is to make sure you're always ADSing before you peek your target and not after. Now let's talk about information. Knowing about your enemy can completely change the dynamic of a gunfight. In fact, the fight you are seeing in the background was won mainly due to the fact that I had a face shield on and I knew that the duo I was up against had buckshot, which won't go through, so I could be fairly aggressive with my peeks. Some good questions to answer when entering a new fight should be: where is your enemy positioned, what type of equipment they have, and how many you are up against. If an armored squad walks by at range, it's probably not the best idea to start shooting buckshot at them. However, if that same squad walked by you when you have AP rounds and they are in the middle of walking towards cover, I'd take that shot. A lot of times, and I personally do this way too much, I try to end a combat encounter way too quickly. And of course, a quick decisive battle is always ideal, but sometimes when things didn't go your way in the opening moments of a firefight, it's much more important to get as much information as possible and strategize from there. In my case, relying on aim and now aiming someone because of ego reasons has gotten me killed way too many times to count. One piece of information that isn't as reliable, however, is Tarkov's audio. Let me explain. Currently in Escape from Tarkov, you are much more able to hear when a player is directly above you, whereas if someone is below you, you might barely hear them or just not even hear them at all.
I don't get it.
Well, Matt Damon, allow me to explain. To demonstrate this audio bug, I actually have a friend of mine under me who's gonna run down the second floor hallway. And you'll notice after I tell him to run, you won't hear anything until I prone, and that is when I can hear through the floor and hear him running. This is just to demonstrate that on some cases, more than half, but not every time, you can't hear under you, but you can hear above you. So if a player's on the first floor, they should hear me running around like this upstairs, but I won't hear my friend here who's just gonna run down the second floor hallway of 3-story dorms. Watch this. Okay, can you run down the hallway right now? Now I'm gonna wait a little bit and then wait till he gets halfway and watch what happens when I prone here. You can hear him. See it? He's on my right. He's on the right side of the hallway. You can hear him perfectly. So keep that in mind that other players are going to try to use this against you. When people are below you, especially in dorms, they're going to know that you won't be able to hear them running around. So either use the prone trick. Hopefully the audio should get fixed. Ideally, just keep your head up and be ready for a player to appear from a staircase below you. Or use that knowledge to your advantage yourself. It is time to talk about map knowledge and or game sense, and I can't stress enough how important this actually is. How many times have you reported someone for getting one-tapped as soon as you enter a new space? Well, I hate to break it to you, but sometimes all it takes is a specific audio or visual cue you've unknowingly given to a seasoned player, and now they know exactly where you'll be and they're probably waiting for you. Things like Tarkov's preset spawning locations, static loot spawns, and general map design are key indicators on where to expect players. On top of that, once you've been in combat enough times, especially in areas you are familiar with, you start to understand how players navigate or fight in those specific areas. After some practice, you'll learn to become a demon out there. Once you are able to predict your opponent's moves, loot will just be coming your way. Speaking of practice, I want to talk about how to exactly practice. Let's be honest, none of us want to be a stormtrooper on the battlefield. I actually don't know how the Empire got as much as they did done. I mean, maybe you could argue, well, you know, Vader and all of that, but nonetheless, I bet you'd be surprised about how little time you actually spend PvPing in Tarkov. Fights can be won or lost with a single bullet, or you just might not be seeing someone in your raid. The best way to get in and actually get practice shooting at some players is undoubtedly Factory, where you spawn in close proximity to other people and chaos usually unfolds not too long after spawn. What I'd recommend is building 4 or 5 kits of your choice, or as many you can fit in your stash really, and then jumping into raid. If you die, well, no worries because you have multiple kits ready to go. And when you don't die, well, that's just loot. And who doesn't want loot? Now before you go, 1, thank you for watching the video up until this point. 2, here's some advanced tips to kick your PvP encounters to the next level. You can pull out some meds and immediately cancel it by clicking to get your enemy to push you. This is especially good if your enemy is bunkered down and you can't really get a shot. This can easily draw him out, providing you with an excellent chance to kill him. You can briefly run into a wall to trick your target into thinking you're either pushing or running away. This will also, like the last tip, get your opponent to either push out of his spot, not every time, but when it works, it's very satisfying to pull off. And lastly, unbind your quick reload from double R key, because even when normally reloading, your computer will wait a small amount of time to check if you're trying to do the quick reload, which is the double press. This could cost you precious amounts of time during a gunfight. Thank you guys so much for watching. Follow my Twitch if you want to see gameplay or ask questions live, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.